every deal matters. Every phone call matters. If you're not calling on that person, trust me, your competitors are. So, why would you not?
Today we welcome Shakira Talbot in what is one of the most inspirational episodes we have ever recorded. In this episode, we explore how from her humble beginnings, she's gone on to become the Group Vice President at ServiceNow, supporting the organization to deliver just under 11 billion in revenue.
I never thought I want to get to that. I want to get to VP. I want to get to GVP. It was I want to be the best in this moment.
We discuss how tenacity and the will to win has really propelled her to the success that she's had.
It's in me. I cannot get it out. Somebody's tried to get it out of me at times. And I'm like, I can't. It's in me. It's literally in me.
We explore how champion building is fundamental on so many levels to her success.
We look at champions very much in a, champion and coach in a deal, but actually it's who is truly advocating for you in a room when you're not there.
And we also explore how she's been able to elevate to the highest echelons of the industry. This is her playbook. This episode is sponsored by PGAI and Seller. Go and discover how these solutions can help amplify your sales execution. Check out the descriptions below. Welcome to Hunters and Unicorns. I'm Simon Koutis and I'm joined by my co-host, Ollie Kune.
Welcome back to the show, everyone.
And it's with great pleasure that we introduce Shakira Talbot. Shakira, welcome to the show.
Thank you both. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And a fellow Brightonian as well. So,
Welsh, but I'll let you have that because I do live there.
Yeah. Coming from the same part of the world, at least at this moment in time.
By way of an introduction, you are currently Group Vice President at ServiceNow.
Yes.
It's a huge scope.
Yeah.
What is the revenue approximately at ServiceNow right now?
Just under 11 billion.
And how much of that rolls up to you?
So I support our president of Global Customer and Field Operations, Paul Smith, and I am the GVP of Global Customer and Field Operations, and all of that revenue rolls up.
I think what's really interesting about today's session is because when you turn up,
yeah,
you've obviously got this presence. You've got this aura around you, and then you hear the numbers that you're responsible for. But actually, what's so unique is the journey and the humble beginnings. And you wouldn't know.
It's not peas and carrots, is it?
Yeah, it's definitely not peas and carrots. So I want to start there.
Yeah.
Because you had a really difficult upbringing.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So, cut to the chase. I'm actually really proud of the fact I'm a care kid. So my start was I'm one of, when I think about my siblings, so I don't have anyone what you would traditionally call a full sibling. So my mum has 5 of us, 4 dads. My dad's got 3 of us, 3 mums. So I'm the only one from my parent, but I grew up without my dad. He was absent. And my mum had her struggles and we got all taken into care. So grew up in foster care. I was lucky enough to have the most amazing foster parents from the age of 11. They were pretty special. I didn't see my family. We all sadly got separated. So with that comes a whole heap of turmoil. But the one thing I would say is I always kind of stood out from my siblings even before we went into care. I was always very focused and driven. And it's an amazing conversation we could probably have on around nature, nurture. But I was fundamentally, I like to think who I am. But my start in life probably gave me more issues than Vogue. But here we are. And I've had, I've been able to turn it into something that's driven me. I used to hide it. I really, really used to hide it. And I remember 3 people in my life have said it's actually your superpower. Steve McCluskey, Jeremy Duggan, and Jason Sutton at Zscaler. So they've said actually Shaq, and everyone calls me Shaq, which I'm very comfortable with. It's your superpower because you can help so many other people. I am still kind of the standout in my family. And what I mean by standout, I don't mean like the bright, shiny star. I mean the one who is, very, very driven. I now am reconnected with all of with my mum and everybody that I completely lost contact with up until I was 18. But I would say my foster parents, Anne and Jack, they put some strong foundations in me from a young age. I worked from the age of 12. So I started working back then, first in an ice cream shop at the weekend, like the foundations were in. If you want to go and make something of your life, if you want, only you're going to do it, there's no handout. And I knew that just from growing up with like literally nothing. We were having a little chat earlier about, always wanting those Nikes. Like for me, actually, I wanted the hard bubble trainers from Tesco. That was like my ambition. It was like we were, quick save, no frills. That was our food on the table if we were lucky. It was tough, but it's brought me to where I am.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't then go to university.
I did, but I
Okay.
dropped out.
Right.
Yeah, I dropped out. So I went off to uni and there was like I was actually even in the Cardiff Echo. It was like, this care kid's going to university. They did a special feature on me. I felt a massive amount of pressure with that. So I went in, I started doing psychology, and it was the same time I reconnected with all my family. So I went from West Wales back to Cardiff, connected with my family. I really hated the course, and I decided to take the year out. And then I went back to do sports science. It really wasn't for me. Like it really wasn't for me. And I tried to persevere with it. My heart wasn't in it. My head was candidly quite all over the place from reconnecting with my family, that I wasn't there. But I hid it for so many years for people that I dropped out. Like I literally physically hid it because I felt so much shame. But now I'm like, why did I feel so much shame? It hasn't changed who I am. I didn't want to go and be a PE teacher. I didn't want to be a psychologist. I wanted to sell stuff.
So did you know that
Yeah.
was what you wanted to do?
Yeah. So my first sales job was at 14. I worked in a timeshare company in West Wales, a place called Larne. And I was the tea girl. So every weekend people come in, they would come and they'd be invited in to have a presentation to win a free holiday to Costa del Crime, wherever you want to go, right? So they'd come in for this free holiday. We'd have to try and sell them the timeshare. And one day they didn't have enough couples to speak with them. And they said, "Oh, Shaq, can you have a chat with them?" I said, "What do I know? Like, I'm the tea girl." They said, "Look, you're a bright girl. You've sat around. Take them through the brochure. This is a pricing model you're going to show them. If they spend $1,000 a year on holidays, over 10 years, that's 10 grand. Well, look, the timeshare is 10 grand and this is for life." So I was like, okay. So I sat down, took this couple, a South African couple they were, and took them through the presentation, took them up to see a lodge, called the manager over a couple of times, say, "Oh, they've got questions about this." And at the end, they were like, I won't do the South African accent, but they said, "Yeah, we're in." I remember the guy, he was South African too, Steve, they're in. He was like, I was like, "They're in." Anyway, I earned like $1,000 commission from that sale. So every weekend I was the tea girl.
Right.
Every weekend.
Yeah,
and
I'm
it was
sure.
a thing to the point that it ruffled some feathers. Like you had, people who were like the age I am now, like, why is this girl being given a couple and this is my full-time job? Because they would then say, right, you could go and speak to this couple, and I would, and it was fun.
Yeah.
But that got me hungry.
Yeah.
Did that trigger something with you?
Yeah, and I remember my foster mum used to say, "Oh, she's got the gift of the gab."
Yeah.
She's got the gift of the gab. And I don't know what it was. Money was a massive driver, but it wasn't like, "Oh, I want money and I'm just going to blow it." It was like, I'm going to provide for myself. So I was really giving in terms of like my foster parents, I'd want to buy them the best present, I'd want to. And me working and money showed me that I could do that. It made me happy, but equally it gave me the life that even at that age, I didn't see. Like my foster parents were paid to have me by social services, so they weren't given a massive allowance. You get a basic allowance. So if I wanted a certain thing, I was paying for it, and I did from a young age.
I want to obviously go back to your, the beginning part of your career. Obviously, you that was your first job. You then got into recruitment, S3. Then first software technology sales was then at Gartner.
Yeah.
And then Gartner to BMC.
Yeah.
Obviously, where you were then enlightened with the likes of Jeremy Duggan and
Trained within an inch of
McCluskey.
my life. The best thing that ever happened to me.
Take us there. Take us to that point.
You were hired on the spot
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Jeremy, weren't you?
Yeah, in Penny Hill Park, it had been snowing outside. I don't know if you want to jump to that straight away, but yeah, I can talk you through how that happened.
Oh, please, take us there. Take us to that point.
So I remember it was snowing, and anyone who lives in Berkshire, it's a bit of a nightmare to get around. And it was the night before a classic thing had happened. I was printing off my CV, printer ran out of ink, couldn't get out to Curry's or wherever you buy your ink from. I think it might have even been PC World at the time, right?
Yeah.
So, and I remember thinking, God, I've got to get to Penny Hill Park tomorrow. I've got to get there no matter what. That's my priority. So I emailed Jeremy the night before and I said, hey, not an excuse, my printer's not working, so here's a copy of my CV. I will look forward to meeting you tomorrow. So I turn up at Penny Hill Park. I remember they directed me to where I needed to go and meet him. And I was like, hi, lovely to meet you. Look, I was going to bring a copy of my CV, but I ran out of ink. I messaged you just to let you know. And he was like, no, you can't even bring a copy of your CV. And he was like, I'm not doing it. And you know when you have that, and I literally had that moment, but clock speed, I said, why do you want to read something when I could just sit you down and talk you through it and actually bring it to life for you? But if you do want to read it, then fine. And he was like, sit down, mate, fucking like you.
Here we go.
And that was what he said. And I remember in that, you know, when you go, it was like a relief. But equally, no, I've driven you in the snow. I've risked my life. I got little SLK outside. I literally have risked my life getting you because I was all over the road. You are going to meet me.
Yeah. So did you have any preparation? Were you told about the legacy that is Jeremy Duggan and the BMC crew? Were you aware of that kind of...
Yeah. So what I learned was I'd spoken to the person recruiting, and I won't say his name because it wouldn't be appropriate in this setting. But he'd said to me, like, based on all of the time I'd spent with him, he said to me, you've got something special, and actually there's only one company I'd want to put you in front of because it'll snap you up. And I still was like, okay, I didn't know their software tenure and legacy, so I was going in just a bit blind to that, but very warm. I'd already qualified during the process what they were looking for and if I was the right match for them. So I knew that. I knew it was all around coachability, clock speed, EQ, all of that stuff. But yeah, I didn't know what they really, really were. So yeah, I went in and then Gartner, Gartner's amazing. Gartner's great learning and developing for value selling. You're selling research, you're selling time, you're selling analysts. You're not truly like going into the depths of how a server's comprised. And I remember having a meeting with my RSD, Chris Wood, and we were talking, and I think I saw like a moment when he realized, she doesn't actually know how a server's comprised. So he started taking me through, and obviously I needed to know that stuff to position Blade Logic, right? Server automation. I then immediately likened it to how your makeup is put on in different layers. You've got your primer, you've got your foundation, you've got your setting spray, your blusher, and he literally looked at me and the colour drained from his face. And I know he said to Jeremy, she's useless, you need to get rid of her. Now, Chris was amazing because he pushed me over those years, right? He really, really did push me. And during that BMC time, like I wasn't the best seller. I literally didn't know a lot when I went in. But what I learned, and then, I did do Winners Club multiple times. But that first year was like they talk about, no, there wasn't a hockey stick. There was a straight line. It was like, bang, you need to learn so much. I remember Steve McCluskey asking me a couple of questions around what are the core competencies of Blade Logic. And I was like, I don't need to know that. My SC knows that. That was in the, oh my God. Next time I saw Steve, like configuration object dictionary, I still remember them today. It was that moment. And I am so grateful for those men and the impact they had on me in that first year, in the 3 years, but that first year of BMC, because I was great at Gartner. I was great at recruitment. I was great at selling timeshare. This was a different ball game. And the playbook I've learned and actually, you need to take this really seriously. It set me up for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So the components of the playbook are obviously, there's so many different components. How did you start to break those down? And when was the realization point for you to continue to drive and continue to apply yourself to those learnings and playbooks?
I think I was so in the thick of it at BMC that I actually think it was post BMC that genuinely everything came to life. So when you're going through it and you're learning, you're learning, how you truly build a champion, why you have to get to an economic buyer before you do a business value assessment, all of these things, or a process audit. It was really afterwards where I went, because I went to ServiceNow, who had a very different approach to doing things at the time. It was afterwards when I went, oh my God, all of this is like true magic. And it even went up another level when I started hiring people myself. Because actually, people that you have that come in the door, sometimes you meet someone and you're like, how have they even got to me? How have they even got past a recruiter to get to me because they don't show X, Y, and Z. I can't pinpoint the moment to answer your question.
Right.
I think there was some true realization at BMC, but it set me up. I mean, I'm ServiceNow 11 and a half years, right? The last 11 and a half years. Like, it's in me. I cannot get it out. Somebody's tried to get it out of me at times, as in people have walked in and said, you don't talk about Medic.
Right.
Because it wasn't the methodology that we were using back then. And I'm like, I can't, it's in me. Like, it's literally in me. I cannot not be thinking about champion building in this way. I can't be thinking, right, at what moment am I going to be, have I tested him enough? Has he passed the test? Oh, do I go, like, that's in me.
This episode is sponsored by Seller. Seller provides a white glove treatment to every complex deal with their bespoke system, whilst ensuring you get the most value from your CRM for everyday selling. Obviously, the playbook is one side, but actually want to also talk a little bit more around your attributes, because one of the things that you believe, that you've shared really defines you is your tenacity, right? How did that was that always there, or is that something that it was one of the weapons that you had? How did you utilize that?
If you were to ask my family, they'd say it's always been there. I see that there are critical moments that have been helped shape through people like Steve, Jeremy, etc. in my career, and many wonderful, amazing people at ServiceNow as well who've helped shape that. But I think it is this desire to win, like real desire. And I am very comfortable to take the burden of my number, somebody else's number, my boss's number, because if I don't get that deal through the door, if I don't get to that COO, CIO, CXO, whatever, like I am going to be impacting the revenue that comes in that quarter. Like, and some people might say, God, what an ego. No, like every deal matters. Every phone call matters. Every time you don't do something or you put it off to something later, someone else is picking up the phone to them. And that's how I've always looked at it. If you're not calling on that person, trust me, your competitors are, and they're in the door. They're already value selling to them. They're already positioning whatever to them. So, like, why would you not? If you truly, truly want to be the best of your craft, why would you not? And it will come down to, I remember it's a great story, when I was at BMC, I was doing one of my first $1 million deals with Nationwide, and Pete was the CIO at the time. They hadn't got the purchase order out, and we couldn't book this without purchase order. I remember Steve and Jeremy were in the office. Pete had left the office for the day and they really needed his signature. Classic case. But it was like, no, nobody's going to go back in. So I managed to get through to his EA, and she was like, look, let me call him. He's not sure. He phoned me and he was like, Shakira, it's just not happening. Like, it is literally just not happening. And we are about to go into a change freeze for SAP, so it's going to be another 2 weeks. Like, and I'm then in a position where I've got to go and deliver that to my boss and my boss's boss. No. So I said, right, what does need to happen to get this done tonight? And he was like, well, someone would actually need to go in and switch it on so that we could actually physically print it out. Very long story short, I got his EA to go into the office in Swindon and turn the machines back on to get the PO out. Like, there's a lot more behind it, but it's that. It's like, I'm not going to lose. I am not going to go in there. And you think I'd already disappointed them. I'd already failed the test when Steve asked me something. Like, this ain't happening.
Yeah. The words can't, won't, shouldn't, but those kind of pessimistic words clearly just don't enter into your thought process. Yeah. Where does that come from? Do you think that's all of, going back to the beginning part of the story? It's kind of like, I'm not going to be told that I can't do something and I'm going to figure this out? 100%.
100%. Like, I remember my first day at school after going into care. So I moved from a school in Cardiff to a school in West Wales. So I got shipped to West Wales. And I can remember feeling like really embarrassed that I was now a kid that didn't have parents around them. And people would like say things and challenge and, oh, are you a ward? Or like, oh yeah, but you don't live with your parents. And it was that like, and it wasn't like a big massive thing, but it's something that stuck in my head enough to go, don't judge me for what you perceive it to be. And I think it is a little bit of that. And I'm just bloody minded. Right. Like, I am a bit stubborn. I'm a Taurus. Oh, for all you horoscope lovers. I'm a Taurus, so I'm naturally stubborn, but also I'm like, I just won't lose.
Right.
How does that tenacity then show up? Are you just a hard worker? Are you just a kind of a non-negotiable? Do you just focus on the fundamentals? What does that actually look like?
I'd say I focus on the fundamentals. Frank Sophia, who's my HRBP, he'd say nobody outworks her. Nobody outworks her. But it's not like a conscious thing. Like, I'm not like, oh, nobody's going to outwork me. I just do what I need to do to get the job done at the level that the company expects. Because I think when you are operating at this level, you can't leave any stone unturned. Like, you really can't. There's too much riding on it, you know. I've got a boss whose reputation is relying on me to make sure I do the best of my work and then my teams. So I think it is I catastrophize. Probably the best way to do it. Okay. I catastrophize. Like, I literally think of what is the worst thing that's going to happen, and I build back the plan. Probably on everything. Like, literally everything. Me and my husband are going on a club trip to Hawaii. I've already catastrophized the worst thing that's going to happen, and I've built a life plan back. Like, it's that, but I don't know how else to operate. I do it everything. Like, if we're doing a tour, if we're going for a tour, we were just back from India. All of the things that could happen on that trip, I've catastrophized. Going into a customer meeting, all of the no's that they could say, how am I going to handle this objection? What am I going to say? Have I got something to back up? Do I have a reference story that I can put in place if they say this, if they throw any curveball? Because by the time you've been selling software for, 14, 15 years, you've usually had a lot of curveballs. So I'm not saying catastrophizing is the best way to go, but it is just how I do. I look for every single risk and I figure out how I'm going to mitigate that before even going into a situation.
With a mindset like that and kind of just that tenacity and the way in which you kind of think about everything, how have you learned to kind of deal with, that very active mind and high level, operating at such a high level of capacity?
So I've married someone who's complete opposite.
Right, okay.
Like, candidly, who's very grounding. He retired last summer. He was a science teacher. He retired so that I can do this role and he can support and be, complete traditional role reversal, should we say. So I'd say I've got a very awesome human being next to me helping me. I mean, I want to say, look, I go off and, I sing to the trees in the woods. So I don't. Right. Like, I just love it. Right. Like, I absolutely love it. I love what I do. I love the intensity. I don't feel a breaking point. Like, sometimes you'll have a day and you think, oh, God, and I'll have a little cry for just me. I'm crying. Yeah. But I love it. I don't feel like I need to go and walk in the woods or go and do this. Like, I just love it.
How important was it for you to have people that really raised the standard? Because it seems as though the higher they elevate or the higher they set the standards, the more you rise to it. Is that how you felt? Yeah.
And I like that. I think it's that problem solving. I always say, had I really figured out what I wanted to do in uni, I'd probably been an engineer, because I actually, How It's Made on Discovery is my favourite programme. Don't know if I can do a plug for how it's made, but I love figuring out the component parts of something and then being able to execute. Like, I think anyone who wants to look at my LinkedIn, execution is at the core of everything I do. Like, it is. I love it. And I think it's like, whatever occupation you're in, whatever profession, if you find something and you love it, you're going to want to nurture it and you're going to want to become the best and you're going to figure out how you become the best and you learn from the best. And I feel really fortunate, like really, really fortunate to do something that I love, working in an industry that I love, that is energizing and really dynamic right now. Like, I just feel really blessed. And I always like to impart that on my team and the folks I work with, that we should really feel blessed. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But if you want to do it and you're all in, be all in.
Thanks to our sponsor, Pipeline Generation AI, the platform that researches your top accounts, creates insights and assets to help you engage more effectively. Elevate your conversations and transform your pipeline with Pipeline Generation AI today. Beyond BMC, you obviously go to ServiceNow. Tell us about your journey towards leadership. Was that always the plan? Was that something that was kind of thrust upon you? How did that happen?
Great question. So it was like for many years, it was like, I'm going to be an IC. I love being an AE. I do not want the responsibility of other people. And then, it must have been about 3.5 years in, it's one of those things, you go, oh, I think I could do a bit better than that. But actually, it was more on, I want to build a career here. I knew I'd wanted to start a family, and that was one great thing to talk about. Actually, I wanted to start a family, but ServiceNow had statutory maternity policy, and I was like, oh, well, I can't. Can it happen here? Do I need to go to like somewhere big? What should I do? Long story short, got HR to change the maternity policy for something that was way more beneficial to me. So at that point, I realised actually.
So 1 second, you changed the ServiceNow, the entire policy?
Yeah,
okay.
Twice. That was the first time. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I got great coaching from a guy called Chris Pope at the time who was in the company. And Chris was like, you need to go straight to global HR. So I did. I said, listen, I see like a long-term career at ServiceNow, but right now the maternity policy is prohibitive. I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like I'm going to have to go somewhere else. And thankfully, I was a top performing AE. So
that had a bit of weight.
That I did a little bit of weight. Had a meeting with them. And initially, they were like, no, this is it. This is the policy. I said, but it's not a contract, is it? They were like, what do you mean? I said, it's a policy. And I actually shared this with Thea Mays. I said, it's a policy. It's not a contract, which means we can have a little negotiation about it. And they were like, oh, here she goes, bringing out the big guns. But ultimately, they changed that. They changed that policy. And then I got pregnant, had my first child, and had the benefit of that policy, which was fantastic. But I got promoted on that maternity leave into my first leadership role. So 2 months in, got promoted to come back and be sales director, which was amazing, and a big risk for them because I didn't come back until I think it was like the late April part-time and then full-time in the June, and I'd been off from the October. So, but that's something I'm really proud of, to be promoted on that mat leave. And then I was promoted on my next mat leave as well, and then got the policy changed just before that one. But the policy was amazing for me that was in place at the time, because it was an average pay over a set number of weeks. Salesperson, beautiful. But there were many people who weren't salespeople, and many people that my team were getting benefit from who weren't salespeople, but they were making a fundamental difference. So it's like, actually, it's an amazing Irvine Welsh quote around, if you're having a great life, basically, vote for a better life for other people. And I believe in that. Like, with my background, if you're doing well, great. But actually, if you're doing well, what can you do for other people? And that encouraged me to help with the second change.
How did you kind of start to work out, how do I balance this? Because at one point I want to be a great mum. Yes, I want to be a great career person. I want something different for my children.
Yeah.
That's obviously adding more and more and more to your pressure and your responsibilities. But how did you start to start thinking about this thing?
This is going to make me completely unrelatable, but it was a night nanny. Right. Literally a night nanny.
Right.
Somebody said to me, Jason Sutton said, you've done well in your career, Shaq. I think you should invest some of that money into a night nanny to get a little bit of balance in your life. I jest, but genuinely, that was one thing. I'd go back to my husband, first of all, having that, he went part-time.
Right.
So he went part-time when I went back to work. But it's a really good question, because if you were to ask my kids, like, what is mummy? They would say all the lovely things, but it's work too. Like, that is a big part of my life. I don't want them to be scarred by that as I grow up, and that's something as they grow up, I battle with it. But I'm not sure I do compartmentalize in a way that, and maybe this is, not saying it has to be, difference between male and females. Like, my life is pretty blended all into one. And what I mean by that is, sometimes I will be on a forecast call and I am, in the middle of doing something or running to do something. But I feel like the only way to answer this, like, genuinely, is I got the most amazing husband that allows me to do and be successful in this.
But at the same time, there's obviously also a kind of what's going on in your mind at that moment. Yeah. So are you feeling as though, do you feel conflicted at all, or are you just focused and you're thinking, or? I
mean, everyone might judge me. No.
And that's fine. But that's the honest answer.
No, it's like my role in my family is to be the provider. That is the role. That is the role we've landed on. I am the only provider in my house. Nothing else is going to happen unless I'm bringing home the check. Therefore, I have a duty of care and responsibility to do that and make sure that everything is provided for. With that comes the intensity of how I operate and how I work.
Yeah, but seeing that, children, as I said, being a father myself, they're learning from, the environments that they're in. Yeah. And, we're not living in a world where, you in order to live a comfortable life, you got to work hard. And so actually instilling this, they're seeing it. My personal trainer, he talks about it. Both his kids are kind of, they touch any sport, they're just amazing at it, right? And he's a personal trainer and he's very, very, dedicated to that. But they saw him going to the gym. They saw him working every single day. Even now, at the right age of 50 years of age, Sol, this is you, by the way, they've got that inspiration and that's carried through. And so, I'm hesitating to guess that, a lot of what you're doing is hopefully instilling the right impression on them to...
Oh, I really, really hope so. And I really encourage them. Don't quit at something, because there's a trend that you see. People who've come from underprivileged backgrounds have changed their life, have kids who grow up privileged, and then actually some of their kids don't see things through. So I'm like, for me, I want to really buck that trend with my kids. So the minute my son gets it's just a bit too hard, I don't force him to do anything, but I remind him how he's going to feel when he's achieved that. Like, James, how will you feel? What do you think? And then I see like a little switch go off in his brain. Oh, actually, rather than quit, maybe I will do that. Maybe I will try and not hit that key on the piano. Like, my kid's got a piano. I didn't even have a keyboard. I didn't have a keyboard. Didn't even have a mini one.
A stick and a bin lid.
I love that.
It's really interesting. So obviously fast forwarding, to where you are today now, which is a huge role with huge responsibilities. Were you always looking up, or were you just thinking about the present and doing the best job you could in the job that you did, and the progression for you just naturally happened?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I never thought going back, I want to get to that. I want to get to VP. I want to get to GVP. It was like, I want to be the best in this moment. I want to do an amazing job and be successful. And the desire to provide, the desire for me to provide for myself and for my family was like far outweighed the ambition of getting to a role. And I remember when I was approached initially back in summer of 23 around, hey, we'd love to talk to you about being Paul Smith's chief of staff. We're running shortlist. Like, I was literally like, chief of staff? Because that was like what the role I did first for him. I was like, that is not me. That is not me. Because I instantly saw that is operational, away from the customer, away from selling. The amazing thing is I was able to craft it completely in the way I wanted to, and be completely customer facing, completely sales focused, and then was obviously built it to be what I am for him now. But it was it's
just naturally happened.
Yeah.
I want to take this moment to ask you very kindly to go and subscribe to our channel. Only 5% of the people viewing our content are actually subscribed. So to ensure that we keep doing what we do, bringing you the very best guests in the industry, please go and hit that subscribe button for us. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy this show.
Why do you think you've been pulled up? Because obviously for you to get to where you are, someone has to pull you up. So you have to be bringing value to someone.
Yeah.
Why do you think you were pulled up?
So I actually recently asked him and asked his former chief of staff, who was doing the job at the time, Nanila Athanyantha, amazing person, by the way, if ever you want to chat to somebody. She's amazing, marketing background, awesome. So she describes it to me that it was like, you just stood out. Like, your numbers were on point. Your deals were always very visible in the forecast. Like, all of these things, when you're looking at sales leaders like that are at that first, second, third line level, like your name popped up quite a lot. And also, if I saw people, I wouldn't go up to an exec, but if there was a deal that I needed their help on, then yes. And I, spoke to Paul a couple of times around deals. So I was on his radar from that perspective. But I think it's about the unintentional impression you leave on people. You have people that are so eager to show an impression in a positive way that actually sometimes you remember that and you can feel uncomfortable. But for me, it was like, how do I get my team to win? And can he help accelerate a deal for me?
Yeah.
Champion building. It does come down to champion building.
Actually, that's a really good point, because one of the things that you that you really talk about is fundamental to all of the success you've had in champion building.
Yeah.
And there's different types of champions. You've got internal champions, external. Tell us a little bit about that and why that's so important to you.
I think you can't do like many things without having the right people around you and advocates and sponsors and supporters. And that for me is champions. And I think we look at champions very much in a, champion and coach in a deal, but actually it's all the time, like, who is truly advocating for you in a room when you're not there? Like, who truly is doing that? And also, how can you be a champion for other people? So I'm obsessed with champion building. If you spoke to anyone that's worked with me, they would say she is obsessed with it. And it's because, you don't have a deal until you have until you have a champion and you've tested them and all of the great stuff that you learn through Medic. But now I also go, right, how am I a champion for people? And sometimes it's about, doing things for them as well, equally, to get their followership and their buy-in and let them know that actually I'm advocating for them when they're not in the room. Like, it's for me, one of the most powerful things that you can be doing in sales.
It's interesting because we get asked a lot, how do I build a career? How do I start to elevate? And it's actually really interesting, a couple of things, because you're building you've got champions above that are selling when you're not in the room, but you're also building followers, but not followers, but you're invested.
Yeah.
So you're creating this vacuum where all of the influence below you and all of the champions, it's naturally going to elevate you up. But you're not doing it in a conscious way. You're just doing it because it's the fundamentals that have given you success.
Yeah, and I enjoy it. I do enjoy it. Like I said, I get to go to work and do something that I love. Like, how many people get to do that? Like, we are fortunate, but it's not a conscious, right, I'm going to do this for this person or that. It's like, I'm doing the right thing.
Authentic. You're authentic with it.
Yeah.
Are you conscious now about where you want to take your career and what you want to do next?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say for me, I would love to be CRO. Like, that for me is the career trajectory I see. Why is that important? And I don't think it's so much like a title of a CRO is important. I think it's fundamentally being able to own and govern and direct the true end-to-end sales execution and strategy for an organization, being able to embed the best of the best sales methodologies, principles, the right way to do things in an organization, and be the person responsible for carrying that, and most importantly, carrying the number. Like, I love accountability. It's a control thing.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're truly accountable, you control it. Like, but it is that. That's why for me, that path is ultimately and fundamentally what I will do.
So if you were to ever go back and have a magic time machine and were able to go back to your younger self, is there any advice that you would give yourself?
Oh, I like that question. So I could be cliche and say, no, everything, just it's all worked out great and for a reason and c'est la vie and all of that.
Yeah.
But if I could go back, I would have just done it sooner.
Really?
Yeah. I would have got into the playbook world sooner.
Yeah.
I'd be a CRO now if I'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
What would you be seeking? So if obviously you were fortunate, whatever you want to say, that you landed at BMC under Jeremy and Steve and that crew, right?
Yeah.
But not all software organizations are made the same. They're not all equal. So what would you be seeking if you were to give the best advice to someone that's thinking about entering this space? Where would you be pointing them to?
Oh, I would be saying anyone who has that playbook and is an amazing leader in that playbook, and it's a spider's web of lovely connections, so you can pretty much figuring it out quite quickly. But it would absolutely be that, like, go and work for somebody who has followership, because the people who have followership are typically brilliant leaders. And they build that from doing the right things in the right way. They may not always be the easiest leaders, but they've got followership because of that reason. That actually, it's somebody that you can typically aspire to be, to look up to, and believe in. And you know that they will believe in you. Like I say, it's not about somebody giving you a path, opening a door all the time and saying, hey, but it's about somebody that is calling your name positively in a room that you're not in. Find those leaders. And you find them when you meet them, you know if somebody is there. And that comes down to gut. Like, how do you, and being able to test that EQ.
Yeah.
How much do you trust your gut? Is that a big part of you? I think you referred to that. Is that a huge, you have that instinct, that kind of innate feeling about?
Yeah, and the reason why is if my gut is telling me no, and like I can't do it. Now, I've actually made a couple of hires over my career where my gut's told me no, but somebody else has advocated really hard for them, and it's typically, you know, I go, oh, my gut told me that.
Yeah.
My gut told me that. And those experiences tell me, just trust your gut, because it's there for a reason. That is there for a reason, or that warm and fuzzy feeling's there for a reason.
Did you adjust your leadership style to kind of mirror anyone, or were you always just yourself in terms of how you approached your leadership journey?
No, I'm pretty much me. Yeah, because I think if you try and be someone else, that only lasts a certain amount of time. And I've seen it in my career, people trying to emulate other people. I'm just me. And, you know, I could be very warm, and I'm always trying to get the best for people. But equally, I'm very direct, because I don't think you can beat around the bush. I think you owe more to people. I think if you're a leader and you've hired someone, you owe it to them to give them direct feedback and to help them. Because you've probably saved yourself weeks and months when you're direct with people versus going around the bush when you're trying to coach them.
Well, I think this is the point where we reflect on what's been an unbelievable session with you today, Shakira. I just want to start off by saying a massive thank you.
Thank you.
But I think, you know, there's so much to take away. And what I love about this session is that you are someone that is so revered. You've got an amazing following. You're so influential. And it's such an inspiration for people that perhaps haven't had the best beginning, right? And the fact that you were able to be so focused and just not single-minded, but you had that tenacity and that desire to just be the best you could possibly be. Yes, you managed to kind of land in a group that was able to elevate you, but it's still you fundamentally that enabled you to pull through and stand out and continue to really focus on the fundamentals, because it's all those fundamentals that you've built married with that tenacity, and then focusing on building the right relationships, which has enabled you to kind of reach the top. And it's just been an absolutely fascinating journey. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.
For me, it's probably, and I'm going to put it out there, probably the most inspiring video or recording that we've actually done on this show. And we've done over 160 odd episodes.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's coming from a real genuine place as well. So thank you so much, Shakira, for coming and joining us. So to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you like what you've heard, please do subscribe to our various channels on iTunes, Spotify and YouTube. All the links will be in the description below. And we look forward to welcoming you back for another session very soon. Take care and goodbye.